This is why you died.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of This Is Why You Died, the horror podcast that started as a small cult in the wilds of Toluca Lake before spreading its message of exsanguination and copious maledictions like slimy, salubrious tentacles of sweet suffering to the earholes of the world. I am your priest of plasma, Sir Ian Dangerous, aka your Uncle Frank, and joining me as always are my fellow acolytes of atrocity, Dan Marcha Madness and Ryan Ross Live. Hello, gentlemen. How are we doing?
I gotta jump in here. Prior to this episode, I was unfamiliar with the Uncle Frank reference that you used every episode, and because of this episode,
So
I am officially uncomfortable with you calling yourself Uncle Frank. I'm no longer cool with it. I now have context.
Yes.
I know the last one you were like, and your Uncle Frank. I was like, why did he say that? And now I know. And yes, equally uncomfortable.
You know, I knew it was a reference, and I knew it was something that's like, oh well, probably something that Dan and Ian get that I don't, and I'll get it eventually. And then I was watching this movie, and I won't say any spoilers because we haven't done the spoiler yet. But I was watching this movie, I was like, oh God, I'm re-editing all of these intros in my brain, like, oh no.
Yeah, today is the day we're going to finally be discussing one of my handles, which is Uncle Frank. As I said, it's a very special edition of the show. We are going to be doing something we've never done before today on This Is Why You Died. But if this is your first time joining the show, welcome and thank you for joining us. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Tell all your friends and family about us if you would, please. If you don't know what we do here on this show, we draw prompts from our respective buckets of doom, which contain words, names, or phrases which inspire us to choose a film. And then we all go watch that film and return here to discuss it. We've done everything from classics to hidden gems to total crap. And sometimes we've seen them before, sometimes we haven't, and sometimes it's just a complete clusterfuck. But welcome to the show. Today, we have something very special. As I mentioned, we're doing something for the first time. Last episode, I hexed the boys. I threw out a hex, what we're calling on the show a hex, which is basically a special caveat to the selected movies. I got the prompt Clive Barker, and I am such a freak for that man and his movies and his books and everything that I was in a pickle. I didn't know what I was going to pick for a movie. And so when we were discussing what movies to pick, I threw a hex on the boys. And as a result, we are actually going to be watching 2 Clive Barker movies. The hex is a double feature. So the next 3 episodes of this show will be double features. I'll be doing a double feature on this show. And then Ryan is doing a double feature on our next show in 2 weeks. And then Dan will finish out the hex cycle in 4 weeks with his double feature. So,
which also, I'm going to point out, when it gets to Dan's turn, that's also our last set of episodes of season 1.
Wow.
That's the beginning of our last set, isn't it?
It's the beginning of our last set. It's cycle 8, and I'll bring us to episodes 22, 23, and 24.
Wow. Well, then I think this is a perfect way to end the season with double features. Double movies.
It works out pretty well, and it's actually going to lead us into our great 25th episode, which will be like a season finale of sorts. And we've got a lot of really fun things planned for that. Got some trivia, got some games. We've got, we have to re-rate one movie. We're each getting a re-rating of one movie on that show. We got a bunch of stuff planned for that.
I'm so excited. I feel so bad about one of my earlier scores. I have been kicking myself about it.
I think we all do.
We've all got one.
When we look back, it's like, wait, why did I rate it that low?
Yeah, we all have
that high.
Some regrets, but looking backwards. But we may yet make some more regrets. We might have some more regrets in store based on what comes in the next couple of episodes. But we got to start with this one right now because, boys, we got a lot to talk about today. As I said, I could not pick just one Clive Barker movie. I had to pick 2. And as my name suggests, I had to go with Hellraiser. And not just any Hellraiser. I had to go with the first Hellraiser from 1987. And I wanted to pair it with the most recent Hellraiser, the reboot from 2022, which, now that we've gone and watched them both, I think we can safely say are pretty fascinating movies to contrast.
They're also like, I was surprised how different these movies. Well, I think we should give spoiler alert here, right?
Is it time?
There are some things.
Spoiler
Are we going to
alert.
start? We're going to dive right into this, ladies and gentlemen. Bam, bam, bam. Going forward, if you have not seen Hellraiser 1987, what have you done with your life? And if you have not seen Hellraiser 2022, now's the time to go check it out, unless you want it all spoiled for you, in which case, just hang out. We're going to absolutely ruin the movie for you. So going forward, spoiler alert. Ryan, what did you want to say about the differences between the two movies?
Well, here's the thing. The first Hellraiser movie is almost not about any of the Hellraiser Pinhead Cenobites at all. It's about like Uncle Frank and what's the woman's name?
Julia,
Like,
our queen.
I was like, I kept waiting because, like, again, right? We've talked about it before. I play Dead by Daylight. The only things I knew about Hellraiser from Dead by Daylight, I knew Pinhead's name. I knew he was called the Cenobite. I knew he had the ability to do the hooks. And I knew about the lament configuration, although I'm not sure that it's ever called that in the first movie. I don't know when that name was deemed, like the box earned the name, the lament configuration. But I knew it was called the lament configuration going into this. And so I was like, okay, the box, we've got the Cenobite, we've got all this stuff. And like, they're in maybe 4 minutes of the movie. I'm like, what is this? What is this weird zombie, like, possession, like, skin grafting movie I'm watching?
So before we dive into the differences between them, I gotta ask, Dan, which ones of these have you seen before? How many times have you seen them? What's your experience with the Hellraiser franchise?
All right, Ian, get ready to not like me. This is my first time seeing both.
No!
Yes.
What?
Really?
I have tried to watch... Okay, here we go. I have tried to watch
I'm excited.
Hellraiser 2 or 3 times before, and I always got bored. I always either fell asleep or I got bored in the first hour. I could not connect. It's true. I mean, I know all this stuff is happening. I get what's going on. I got the story, but I just could not like get into it. I don't know what it was.
This is so exciting.
So, yeah.
If you're just joining the show, if you've never listened to our show before, if you have no idea who Dan is, I need to assure you, he is a horror fan. He does like horror movies. He directs horror movies. This is very unusual.
It is.
Here's the crazy thing too. It's like stereotypically Dan's the one who likes the big tentpole horror franchises, and like Hellraiser is one of those.
Here's the thing: is that
wait, Dan, have you never watched any Hellraiser movie?
Never.
There's like 10.
None of them?
I know. There's so many. I've never seen any of them. I saw parts, I'm sure, when I was younger, but the thing about 80s horror is, like, besides like some of the, I haven't seen like every Friday the 13th, but like besides some of the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Streets and seeing Freddy and of course Halloween, which I love, those major ones were kind of the ones that I stuck to. But a lot of 80s horror, I never really identified well. Like, I didn't really identify with it. And I think that, like, I really truly got into horror, like when I was in more like my like early teens, 12, 13, 14. So like you got more of like the new slashers coming out and like different things that I was sort of into. So like this movie, when I remember trying to put it on, it was just, it fell into that sleazy horror sort of vibe, which I could never really connect to. I was like,
Ian's grinning over
and
here.
I was like, man, I don't know what it is. And I was like, I know this is an important film in horror. I know it was like, it came out at a time that it needed to. I know it's, there's so many sequels and everything that's done. I was like, but I just don't get it. And finally, after going, okay, just refocus, just give it a new chance. So I watched it and I was like, all right, I'm going to go through this and give it a whole other chance. And I really was like, why did I give up on it? Because it's very good. Like the last 30 minutes really helped save it for me when they started focusing on the daughter storyline some more. Like that's the character that I really connected to the most. Everybody else was just so freaking annoying to me. I was like, I was just like so annoyed with everybody.
They're really bad people.
Yeah, and like
this movie is filled with bad people.
Her husband is like this like whiny little guy who like, I don't know what's wrong with her. I don't know why she doesn't love this crazy haunted house that I'm moving her into.
Larry's a sweetheart. Oh, poor Larry.
No, I get it. Like he's a nice guy, but it was like, and then this woman who's like immediately hates him. I'm like, what did he do to you? He's just trying to like give you a life, and you're just smoking and angry. And then you get this whole Frank storyline. Like, oh my God, she's horrible. And Frank's, what the hell? So like, it really, I'm glad that I moved past it. I'm shocked that I'm admitting, but like as such a huge horror fan, Hellraiser was not one of the movies that I gravitated towards. Yet I have to say that I really did enjoy Hellraiser. And okay, I won't go into the second one yet.
Well, no, I was just about to say, go into the second one.
The second one I liked so much more.
Really?
Yes. I liked the reboot more.
I'm very interested to see how this conversation goes.
Right.
Yes.
So okay, so we're gonna leave it right there. Never had seen the first Hellraiser. Like the reboot much more.
Yes.
But I'm shook. I had no idea you'd never seen the first one. Ryan, I knew you'd never seen either of them going into this, but beyond
Correct.
Dead
Shocker,
by Daylight,
I know.
very much a shocker. Beyond that, what was your initial reaction to the differences between the two movies?
So, like I said, I was shocked that the first one had so little of the namesake, right? And like, I know I've had some side exposure to the series in the sense of like, I hang out with people who either are horror nerds or are like, have watched things because of Dead by Daylight, whatever. And I know that generally speaking, Hellraiser as a series gets a lot more lore heavy, and you get into the series, at least the original series. I don't know how many fall in either side, but I know that like at least the original like preceding Hellraisers, if that's what you would call them, have more like Cenobite stuff, and they do the kind of like they toe the line of like BDSM horror stuff of like this like pain versus pleasure line is kind of like a thing that they explore in the films, and that's kind of a staple of the series. Like I knew kind of that stuff, right? Which is why I was so surprised that there's really not almost any of that in the first movie. The whole thing is this like Frank's getting a new body is the movie. And then you get to the new one, which first off, I know I've seen you play in the bar before. I know for a fact I've been there on a night that you played at least some scenes of this movie, because I remembered the big, for lack of a better term, I'm going to call it the Matt Lauer chamber of, he had the switch that shut the doors on people.
Oh God! Did Matt Lauer's, was his apartment like that with women?
Matt Lauer had that whole sex issue where he had a button in his office that he could lock the door from his desk, which is fucking so uncomfortable and gross. And fuck that guy.
Yeah. And Goran Visnick look a little bit like Matt Lauer in this movie.
Oh, does he?
A little bit. I'm not saying it was intentional, but
I've only ever known Matt Lauer bald, so. But anyway, Matt Lauer aside, I know I've seen that room and like the intro sequence of that movie in the bar before, but I was excited to see like, oh, this one's a lot more about the box and like the Cenobites and the way that they come after people. Although it also had a modernization of like Pinhead was a woman, which I was surprised by. I was like, oh, that's different. I wasn't aware of that. And so like there was like some stuff that I was surprised by. I was more excited about like the lore stuff in the new one than the old one for sure. And I definitely think that the old one, I wanted it to be more, I wanted less Frank. I was like, I don't give a shit about Frank. Like, show me the stuff, man. Show me the horror.
No, this is what I wanted to get into. This is one of the reasons why I really wanted to watch these two. Had I known that Dan had never seen the first one either, I would have been even more excited about this, because here we are. We're now in a situation where you two are, I would say, in the minority as far as the horror community goes, of preferring the new one to the old one. And
I saw that on the reviews of the new one. I was like, oh no, this one has such lower audience score. Like they're both pretty close critic-wise, but
and let me try to explain that as someone who also thinks the original is better than the new one. Although as much of a Hellraiser purist as I am, I'm one of the few ones that actually really like the new one. I love the new one because of what it does, because of the things that it does with the series, even though I do miss certain aspects of it. And I want to explain that because you saying right then that Frank you're bored by Frank. You're like, let's get to the Cenobite stuff. Like, yeah, here's the thing. A lot of what the series became was, let's focus on Pinhead. He's the hero character, if you will. He's the Freddy, he's the Jason, although he never quite got as much quote unquote respect. But back in the day when Hellraiser came out, you were expected to make a franchise. You were expected to have a lead horror villain that kept everyone coming back to the franchise. And Pinhead was that for this series, although that wasn't originally the intention. He was just the quote lead Cenobite. He wasn't even called
noticed that.
Pinhead. And in the original short story, The Hellbound Heart, that Clive Barker based this movie on, he was just known as the Hell Priest. He was just another nameless creature, demon from hell or whatever plane of existence that was supposed to be hell-ish that they came from, whatever other realm they were coming from. He was just it. It wasn't even a he. And that was one of the interesting choices in the new one, was that they cast, instead of trying to cast someone to replace Doug Jones, they actually cast Jamie Clayton, who's a trans woman, as Pinhead.
Oh, interesting.
To try to get that sort of asexuality. All the Cenobites are beyond sexuality. Most of them do have mutilated genitalia as a way of showing that they're beyond what we would consider sexuality or gender or any of that. They're so far beyond worrying about that kind of stuff. But for me, being literally raised by Hellraiser, seeing it when I was, I think, 11 or 12. And I used I used to fall asleep to this movie.
This explains so much.
This
explains so much.
I've seen this movie hundreds of times.
Wow.
The soundtrack is just one of the most beautiful things. I love the soundtrack of this movie, which is funny because I also like the alternate soundtrack. It wasn't the original soundtrack. That was made by a electronic band called Coil. This soundtrack is actually Christopher Young, who also did Nightmare on Elm Street 2, I think, and a couple other movies. But anyway, I digress. This is going to be a show where I'm going to have to try hard not to monologue because this is my baby.
We're going to have to
my
rope
baby's
Ian back in.
Yeah.
You're going to have to. I'm going to have a hard time not going on tangents. But the original Hellraiser, in a lot of ways, wasn't about the Cenobites. They were just plot devices. They weren't there to be the focus of it. They weren't there to be the big show. The point of it was the fucked up relationships these humans had. And it was how they were pushing their own limits. It's how they were pushing the boundaries of relationships and sex. And the whole idea of S&M, of bondage, was pushing limits, pushing what was considered acceptable sexuality. And the original Hellraiser was absolutely a movie that was extremely sexually transgressive when it came out, because at the time it came out, the homosexual S&M subculture in England at the time, which Clive Barker was a part of, was seen as extremely transgressive. And so to project it into this movie as being this boogeyman that the Cenobites represented, as being alternate sexualities, was extremely transgressive and flew in the face of a lot of the dominant paradigm of the time. And so it's funny that a lot of the stuff that was kept in the movie, a lot of the violence was acceptable, but they cut a lot of the sexuality out of the movie. Some of the scenes with Julia and Frank, where they were having the flashback and they were, Frank was seducing her. A lot of those scenes were a lot more explicit, but they had to cut the sex. Wow. And they were able to keep in some of that insane over the top violence. So, and they had one rating from the MPAA where you can only have 2 thrusts of Frank's butt when they're having sex. 3, and it's obscene. Crazy. That's the kind of time that they were dealing with. And so the original Hellraiser is, for me, it's about Frank. It's about what he represents as someone who is pushing boundaries, who has experienced everything that he can experience in this sphere as far as hedonism. And he's trying to get to that next level. And he reached it. And now he's like, okay, shit, I went too far. Let me bring it back down, But I've got to throw it back to you guys after this monologue, so excuse me, but that's one thing I do want to actually talk about, is the fact that the old Hellraiser, the original Hellraiser, is a movie about pushing sexual boundaries, and it's a movie about finding sexual deviancy and being attracted to it, but not knowing if you're pushing it too far. And the new Hellraiser, I would argue, and I want you guys to discuss, is about addiction. and it's about destroying your friendships. It's about destroying your life. And at the end of all of it, you have to go to the very end of it and get to hit rock bottom. And then afterwards, you're going to be left with regrets. You're going to be left with broken friendships. And there are some people that are never coming back. And you're going to always wonder, should I have just stayed high? And should I just kept going? Would I be happier? And so it's two very different messages.
Well, honestly, I would even go one step further than addiction and just say obsession in general.
Okay, sure.
Right? Of like addiction is because I agree with you of the point of the assessment that addiction plays a huge role in the film, and definitely like the message that you're describing is accurate. But I would go even beyond just addiction itself and say like obsession as a whole, like addiction within that umbrella of like Roland Voigt. Is it like what's our main character's name? The girl's name? Riley. So Riley's story is very much addiction focused, and like you could argue that Roland Voigt is addicted as well to this like power trip that's going on. But the other thing is
he's the Frank Cotton. He's the hedonist.
Yes. Yes, but he's also like in all of his like he's done all this research. He's designed a house. Like it's obsessive beyond just like a level of addiction. Like he has wrapped his entire life around this thing to the point that he understands like this otherworldly science associated with the Cenobites and the box and the configurations and how this all pieces together. He's that meme of the dude in the mailroom like tying all the strings together of like, they don't actually work here. It's this name, Sunny in Philadelphia. But it's, to your point, like obsession is all consuming, right? It consumes everything in your life and you're left with nothing but this one thing. And even once you supposedly get to whatever you're obsessively seeking, it's never going to be the fulfillment or have all the answers that you're looking for. You're going to have burned so much along the way to get there that it probably isn't worth it.
And I guess my point is that that's why I think the new Hellraiser works, is because at its core, it is talking about the same thing. It's just the veneer that's over it is a little different. And some people were missing the sleaze of the original one and that feeling of sexual transgression that you get from it, where it really does hit a very fundamental place and make you feel really uncomfortable when you're seeing some of the stuff on there. It's kind of like when you watch like Japanese hentai porn, right? There's just something about it that hits this weird amygdala in your brain, and you're like, okay, there's just something squirmy and wrong about what I'm seeing. It's hitting me in some weird sexual place that like I shouldn't be getting like tickled there. It's just wrong. Now, Dan, here's my question. Is that something, when you watched it as a grown-ass adult, because when I was a kid watching Hellraiser, it made me feel all kinds of squiggy, right? Yeah. But I didn't know why. I couldn't place it. But you're watching it as an adult. How did it make you feel when you watched the original?
I mean, I think it still gives you that feeling because it's like, you know, it is showing these very like, you know, it's blending the idea of sexual gratification with violence. So you're like, you know, you're kind of being forced to feel this alternative, you know, kind of sexual experience sort of watching this. And so I think it is kind of depends on the person watching it. But I would say like as an adult, it's still just, I think maybe that's why I was able to kind of, now that I'm a bit older, because when I first tried to watch Hellraiser, maybe it wasn't even that long ago, but it was like the sleaze is what sort of turned me off from it, you know? And maybe that was just because I was feeling uncomfortable, where I was like, I don't think I want to watch this. And so that it was like subconsciously I was putting myself like falling asleep or getting turned off by it because I just didn't want to experience it.
Right.
Now having sat through it, I get it now. Like I understand, like, and even hearing more of your explanation, I can appreciate more of what, you know, of that theme. And I think that's really interesting. I actually was getting a different message out of the first one than what you were describing. I was getting more of like this theme of the male trying to dominate and control women, you know, and like because, you know, Frank is making this woman, you know, now murder men, you know, so that he can come back to life. And even like, you know, like it baffled me why it happened, but the fact that they put her daughter in what seemed to be some sort of like mental institution, like just because she passed out on the street, that like felt like, oh, she must be, having just some crazy anxiety attack. Let's lock her away, this crazy woman. I felt like that was kind of what they were sort of going at, is like men having this control over women. And I felt like the daughter, when she came back, when she escaped, when she came back to like get revenge and try to save her dad, I felt like she was now coming and owning that. Like, and she was like breaking past all these men to take them out. Even there's one thing that really caught me off guard is when they're trying to escape the house and that big penis scorpion monster thing that was chasing her down the hall.
The engineer.
Is now outside. Her boyfriend tries to help her, and she looks at him as like, no, like I'm doing this. Like, get the fuck away from me. Like, let me do this now. Because I think she was finding like all these men are forcing me into this thing that I don't even want to be a part of, so I'm getting us out of here. And that's kind of, and like she's the one that's trying to burn the box. It's like she's taking everything in account for her to break past all these male figures trying to break her down, and like her stepmother who like succumbed to that and died because of it. So that was the other thing that I was getting out of the
she's the only one with the knowledge too.
True.
And she's also she's the only one in the whole movie. I mean, well, not that there's many people in the movie, but you look at her and she has a very healthy relationship with this boyfriend of hers that that she meets at the dinner party and then flirts with, has sex with, and then they're a very normal couple. There's nothing really off about them at all. They're very normal and nice. They're probably one of the most pure things in the movie.
Honestly, he's kind of a champ. He sticks it out through some freaky shit, and it's just like,
true.
Throughout the whole thing, he's just kind of like, "Hey, I'm here for you. Like, let me help."
I mean, I gotta say, you're right. He does stick up for he sticks through everything, especially considering he looks like a bassist for a bad '80s synth pop group.
Yeah. He had a lot of opportunities to bail, and he sticks around.
No.
He's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm in it. I'm here.
He's sticking around to level 42, if anyone gets that joke. But all of that aside, if you look at the original movie and the kind of the squiggy feelings that it gives you, and the fact that it's really about showing some of these toxic relationships, as you say, Julia, who is just, she's out to find pleasure and she's going to destroy her life for it. And then comparatively, you've got Riley, who is a recovering addict who now is experiencing a very different kind of attack from the Cenobites in all of the lore. Ryan, you had mentioned how the lore differs, and I know you haven't seen the other Hellraiser movies where they go more into the lore. You haven't read the books. There is a lot more to the lore that they go into in the original series, although it really is all over the place. I'll just really quickly run down that they only really do lore that you can follow in the first, second, and like maybe fourth movie. And aside from that, it's all kind of chaos.
Okay. Well, how many are there in the original
There are 9 in the original series, and then the reboot. And
9
of them.
Are they chronological, or are they just all over the place?
I stand corrected. They're 10. I'm looking it up now.
Wow.
Oh, God.
There's the original Hellraiser. There's Hellbound, which is Hellraiser 2, which is, of them, I would say the only one that's halfway good, and it follows directly on this one. It follows what happens. They resurrect Julia. There's a crazy doctor who resurrects Julia and brings her back without her skin, and she's phenomenal. She's an awesome character in that, too. But then at the end, they end up going to the other realm, to the labyrinth, which is like the Hellraiser version of Hell. The weird, twisty...
The hallways that keep showing up everywhere.
Right, yeah, like the MC Escher world, right?
Yeah.
So they go there in Hellraiser 2, and that lore gets brought into it. The other world, Leviathan, the god, right? That all gets brought into it. Hellraiser 3, for some reason, the Cenobites all come to Earth and kill a ton of people, and it's basically just 80s ridiculous coked out madness, and it's terrible. There's a Cenobite that has a CDs that he shoots out of his head and kills people. He's like a DJ Cenobite. It's fucking terrible.
Oh my God.
Then Hellraiser 4 is Hellraiser Bloodline, and that actually talks about where the box came from, what the box is.
That's cool.
And they go into sort of the lore of that, and it's actually called Le Marchand's box still because of that, where you meet Le Marchand, the guy who made the box, and it like made the connection between the other worlds.
Interesting.
That's cool.
And that movie's not great, especially because as you may or may not know, horror franchises officially jump the shark anytime they go to space. Jason X,
they're in space on 4?
Leprechaun in space. In 4, the book-ending story is of Le Marchand's descendant, like in the future, living in a spaceship.
What?
It's
What?
Interesting.
yeah. And then after that, they all go downhill. You got Inferno, Hellseeker, Deader, Hellworld, Revelations, and Judgment. Most of which
Deader?
were Deader. That's actually, they thought that was a cool name
Someone
for a
was
Hellraiser movie.
happy with that. Wow.
Yeah, someone actually let that go out into the world. And
Deader, love it. Go.
yeah,
Print.
Deader. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's make a
That's
movie
better than
called
dead. It's deader than
Deader. You're dead-er. You're more than dead. Hellraiser 11, Deadest. But no, all of those, or most of them rather, were made from spec scripts that were made just to be a horror project, but were never meant to be Hellraiser, and they twist them into Hellraiser movies.
That's the
Okay.
Cloverfield effect right there.
Right.
That's what Cloverfield was doing too.
And sometimes that works better than others. Inferno, for example, is actually a pretty damn good Twilight Zone kind of movie. It's just a fucking terrible Hellraiser movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you start and the lore starts going crazy where they become more Abrahamic, where they actually are from hell. It is hell, just by a different name. Pinhead has it out for God in some of them. Like it loses the plot on a lot of them. So bringing it back to this reboot, where they go back to kind of they look back at Hellbound Heart and they say, what was the lore there? And they kind of find some new lore with how the box changes forms, the 6 different configurations of the box. And that's one thing I liked. I really liked the fact that they found that new lore where the box changes shapes. However, I didn't like the fact that it takes some of the agency, that makes the Cenobites a little bit more intentional with how they kill people. They still operate by rules, but they seem like they have more agency in being able to take people. And I wanted to know if you guys felt it worked better in the original, where they were more kind of cosmic horror entities that just didn't really care about humans. We were just kind of there to them, and then they would just take off. Or if you liked it more in the reboot, where they were cosmic horror, but they were definitely out to get them some humans.
Honestly, for me, I it's a little bit of both. Like, I liked, to your point, the structure of the new one, in the sense of like, okay, there's the progression of the box. The box symbolizes things. They're almost like these religious figures within this like entity that is like unknowable to man. Like, I liked that. I think my complaint with it is the aspect of like this blade popping out of the box.
Yes.
And like the concept that, because if we take that as it's meant to be, right, that means that every configuration requires somebody to cut themselves on the box, and then it's just gonna sit until somebody else finds it and figures it out, which like that feels so limiting to me. And also like the fact that it starts out and it misses her and they're like, well, you were supposed to get cut, naughty, like, how dare you juke the system.
And then they stab someone. Like, if you don't cut anybody, we'll just show up and stab you. Yeah, that was definitely, I thought, a big miss.
Yeah, like, there was like some weird, like, I don't like the knife aspect. Like, the rest of the concept's great. Like the okay, every configuration has a meaning within this religion, and it all has this representation, and like it requires sacrifice to like, that's all cool. But like, I just wish they hadn't made it like, and if you unlock a configuration, there's a switchblade inside that if you get nicked, like, that's it. You're the next one moving forward. Like, the wheel of progression is on a switchblade. Like, that was silly.
It was definitely 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the concept there. Yeah, I agree. The 6 configurations were super cool.
Everything else about it, I really liked. I liked the fact that like somehow Roland Voight was able to figure out like, hey, the patterns on the box affect the physical entities of the Cenobites, and if I build this cage around my building, I'm able to like protect it as a fortress. Like, I can build this weird temple room that can like serve as a like that. All of that was super cool, and I loved that aspect of it. But like, it just felt like the box itself was both really cool and kind of disappointing in all in one. And I was like, God, like, that's one of the coolest. I think it's kind of the iconic Hellraiser thing, is the box.
100%.
Right? Like, the box is the series in a way. And so to have that core aspect have like this huge, like, glaring flaw that sticks out like a sore thumb, or in this case, like a fucking switchblade, That was a bummer, I think.
I agree. As someone who's like, I think the box is actually the star of the first movie more than Frank or Julia or Pinhead or anybody. It's about the box. Every movie has to have the box in it somewhere. You don't always have to have Pinhead. He's not as important. He's just a hell priest, technically, but the box is the gateway. And the box is also kind of the MacGuffin, right? It's the thing that everyone's looking for. It's the symbol of addiction, desire, thresholds, whatever you want to call it.
And it drives the plot.
Yeah, it drives the plot. I mean, it is one of the coolest things that you could possibly...
Whoa,
no, there you go. Okay, he just pulls it out.
That's cool.
I just whipped out my own Le Marchand's box that I have. Should I ever want to start fiddling with it and summon some demons to my place?
Well, if Ian saw it on future episodes, we know why.
You'll know why. I have ascended.
We know where he went.
I have moved on to new experiences beyond your comprehension.
The box.
As long as you're not coming after small children, Uncle Frank. That's what I'm good. No teenagers for you, please.
No. I've evolved far beyond that. Such base desires.
Oh God,
Dan, what were you going to say about the box?
You know, I guess I didn't mind the Switchblade thing until you pointed out how blatantly, you know, limiting it is. So now I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. And but what I liked about the first one more too was that I liked that she could reverse the box order and eliminate that was like, so the power was there. But like you said, it was like the box didn't really, it was more like the choice. And it was like, here's our next victim because you got cut and now we're coming after you and there's nothing to stop it. Where it was like, no, the box is the key. If you go forward, you change it, it can unlock more. If you turn it back, you know, you can push some things away and keep yourself safe. So I did like that the box had more of a, you know, it was more important and it really, you know, had a lot more of a driving force in the original than it did in the second one. That's a great point.
That's interesting because I almost feel like in the first one it was underutilized. I feel like, to your point, it did some cool stuff in the first one. And like, yes, it's kind of what drives the plot. But like, I feel like so much of the movie is just like Frank skin stealing people that like, I'm like, I want more box. Like, screw Frank in these like husks, right? And like the heart in the floorboards that's like hiding there for like, why? Like, why? Give me the box, man.
Oh, come on. I don't know. I'm going to have to wildly disagree there. I think Frank's resurrection is one of the coolest things in horror history to me. His actual...
the practical effects are great.
Oh my God. But just the fact that he's got a little bit of himself left in this world. This weird little piece of viscera between the floorboards in the attic. And all it takes is some drop of his family's blood to like pull him through the worlds. And he can just very horrifically and project some of his flesh back into this world. It's an incredibly visceral and goopy movie. And that's one thing I think the new one's missing as well.
True.
The first one is very wet and dirty and everyone has a sheen of sweat on them, you know, or like Frank himself when he's between forms is incredibly goopy, right? He's got no skin, or he's just, you know, when he's got like barely any muscle on him, he's got holes in his flesh and he's just very grotty and visceral and disgusting. And I love that because it does get under your skin a little bit, pardon the pun. And the new one, the Cenobites are very clean. They're very pretty. They're very austere. And they don't...
Well, one of them has its chest pulled over its face, but...
Well, one has his chest pulled over its face, but it's not damp for some reason. It's just kind of a piece of skin.
True.
The only one that's got any kind of dampness is, I believe, it's the gasp. Or no, the crier, or what's it called? The one who's got the tears coming out of its eyes.
Oh, yeah.
The weeper or something like that. The one whose arms split apart. That's the only one that gets any kind of wet at all.
Right, yeah.
Even the one that has like its lungs pulled out of its back in almost like a nod to Blood Eagle isn't bloody.
Yeah.
They're not bloody. They're not wet. The original Cenobites were very wet and gross. And I kind of missed that. They were supposed to look like butchers, according to Clive Barker. They had like the leather on, which looks like S&M, but also looks like butchers. It makes you think of like killing floors. All of these little subconscious notes with the design of the original Cenobites. And the new ones, as much as they are kind of cool visually, I don't think that they punch as hard deep into your subconscious.
Yeah, I think that like, I feel like when the Cenobites would come into the movie in the first, like as soon as I would see a Cenobite in the original, I would just be completely disgusted.
Right.
Like I would just see that, like especially that short, fat one that just keeps licking with that giant tongue. It's like every time he's on screen, I was like, oh. But it's like it's like you can feel it. And like the new one, you really have to look. Like you really have to look at the design, and then you're like, oh my God, that's her. That's the back of her head being pulled open and then attached to the front of her body. That's gross. But like you said, because there's no goopiness, there's no like parts of the insides coming out. This is it's more like, it's like an artistic form. It's like they've been changed into this new form beyond, which is what kind of happens at the end of the movie. I think I want to talk about that definitely of the end of what you guys think the end of that means. But like when he's transforming into the thing, it's like, oh, they're creating another one. It felt like this is how they do it, you know?
Sure.
And so it just felt like they were being more, everything just felt like there was perfectly cut squares, shapes to like show parts of the muscles underneath. But like, you know, whereas in the original, it was just like, boom, chest open, goopiness inside, super gross, you know?
I almost feel like the first one, they're more like aberration-y. Like they're like, it's not quite demonic in and of its essence, because demons, like you think of demons and you think of like imps and like, or big broad-chested shit that's like tends to be a little bit cleaner. It's almost like this weird like aberration, grossness, like it doesn't quite fit in the physical realm. Whereas in the new one, they almost feel just more alien. Like I do agree that they're a little bit more sterile, in the sense that like they are still demonic-y, like there's aspects of them that are very, but it seems like they went more alien, cosmic-y in the new one, whereas like the original feels more like aberration, grossness, like it's not meant to be here. It's not meant to manifest in the physical world. Whereas the new ones almost feel like they're visitors to the physical world. They're like, they come by every once in a while.
Which I think is actually something that they intended with the movies. They wanted them to feel more alien. And of course, because they were going back to the idea that they were essentially priests in this weird alien religion that worshipped some sort of giant unknowable elder god, that all the things that they were doing were kind of like ritual scarification or tribalism or something like that. Everything that they did, all of the ways their bodies were torn apart and distorted, was at the whim of some greater power, and it had some sort of meaning to them.
Yeah.
The reasons that they were all disfigured in this way had some sort of deeper meaning. But that really works on your brain, and you can't really see that until you see them up close, as you said, Dan, and really look at the designs, and your brain has to start figuring out what pieces of them are where and why and so forth. And by that time, the impact is gone. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this show called Face Off on TV. It's basically a makeup competition show.
I haven't, but it looks, but they're creating, you know, they're doing the prosthetics, they're creating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They're all creating prosthetics and makeups and stuff like that. And they have time limits and caveats and so forth. But it's a very cool show that gives you the idea of what goes into designing and creating these kinds of prosthetics for these kinds of movies. And one of the things on that show is that the judges pointed out a lot, and it opened my mind to it, was that sometimes it can be less impressive, but hit harder if you go for simplicity over overthinking something. If you overcomplicate something, then the initial striking image doesn't impact as hard. Pinhead, when you see him right away, it burns itself into the back of your mind. This bald guy with black eyes and this weird geometric pattern on his head, and at the connection of every line, there's a pin that's been hammered in to his skull, right? The rest of him is somewhat complicated. It takes you a while to see that his chest skin is folded over his outfit, like he's sewn into his leathers. It takes you a while to see that, right? And that's what's happening a lot with the new Cenobites, is all of the detail work is everywhere now. And a lot of, I think, the really big iconic stuff is gone. Even the female Cenobite in the first one is just, she's bald, she's got the eyes, and she's got a big piece of wire that comes out of either side of her face like piercings, which at the time were very transgressive. To have piercings in your face like that, now it's not so much. But the fact that it attaches down to her throat, which is spread wide open like a vagina, and she's even fingering it at one point, that is really subliminally suggestive, and it hits really hard because it's so clean. It's such a clean image. Butterball, he's a big fat Cenobite who licks his lips all the time. That hits. Chatterer, he's got the teeth, right? He's just a bald head, no eyes. He's just a mouth that goes.
Yeah.
All the Cenobites hit really hard. The new ones, they don't have that punch.
Well, and kind of to our point earlier of like the fact that they almost seem to have a little bit more purpose in the new one, and they're tied to this like structure of the box. The new ones feel like they are supposed to come by. Like they've got like a purpose. Like the old ones feel like they're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Like it's more of a exceptional thing for them to they're like, oh, we've come to this plane because of one dude who figured this out, and like what a mistake he's made. Whereas the new ones are like, oh, Earth again. Here we are.
So that's one thing I want to ask you guys is which movie for you guys did kind of the cosmic horror work more? Because I personally think that as far as cosmic horror, Hellraiser has some of the best concepts of it, at least until they made it much more Abrahamic in the later Hellraisers, and they made it much more of kind of this binary heaven and hell system again. You know, the parts of Hellraiser where they make it just these creatures from another dimension that's just right adjacent to ours, and you can slip into their dimension very easily. And they have sensations and perceptions about reality and about how we experience things that are very different from ours. Their tastes are very different from ours. Which movie nailed the cosmic horror better for you guys?
I don't know that I can say one's better than the other. I think they both do things well and fail at certain things. And I will say the first one, I think the first one I'll give credit of they have the disadvantage of 40 years of filmmaking and special effects progress, right? So like I will state that as a caveat, but I think that the first one is a lot more consistent in how it represents all of the different Cenobites in the world and the stuff, and I think that they like do a cooler job of like establishing a through line, but I don't think that like there's as many cool moments with them. Like I like the whole scorpion wall crawl thing like felt kind of cheesy to me as a thing. Like that that didn't really
and
work.
The fact that you can kind of see the guy pushing him in the wheelbarrow behind him at a couple of cuts, you know.
Yeah, like there's stuff like that just didn't work. But like in the new one, I think that I was really impressed with some of them. I loved all the like the hallway shit that they were doing, and the fact that like different parts of the world would like stretch. I felt like that was really well done. I thought that the scene in the back of the car where the friend gets absolutely murked in the rear view was so cool.
So good.
And then I feel like they jumped the shark right about the time that the ship comes in. Of like the ship coming in itself felt like a really cool shot. And after that,
that's no shit.
That's cosmic horror, though.
That's Leviathan.
That's the box.
That is Leviathan.
I know. Well, Leviathan. It looks like I'm using the word ship loosely, but like when it comes in, that shot of it arriving was super cool. It's super well done.
Yep.
I think unfortunately every CG shot after that started to feel too Star Wars for me. It got too far away from the horror aspect and got into weird sci-fi-ness. And I think the ending shot that Dan was mentioning earlier, like and this is purely my opinion, but if you're going to try and end on that note of like, we're going to see a Cenobite formed, we're going to do this big metaphor of like gaining powers, becoming one of them, like you have to really commit to that scene. And I don't think that they had the CG budget to pull it off. It felt cheesy to me. And like so much of the CG and the way that they did throughout the movie was so cool, and then it fell so flat in like the last 10 minutes because they like ran out of like they tried to push the CG too far, and then I was like, God, like this doesn't feel as cool as I want it to be because it feels like it's not well polished.
Which is really funny because in Hellraiser 2 they actually show Cenobites being made, and they add kind of the weird idea that Cenobites come from humans, and they're humans that have ascended to another plane of existence, which can work but doesn't always. And they show Pinhead's origin, and I think it's terrible, and I frankly hate it. I much prefer Pinhead to have always been a demon,
frankly,
right? But when they show the Cenobites being formed, they use kind of like a similar sort of stop motion-y kind of effect where things look like they're a little jittery. And actually the CG in that scene mimics that same kind of stop motion-y effect. And I don't know if that's because the CG, I don't know if it was intentional. I genuinely don't know if it was intentional or not, but I have to assume that it is because it's such a specific effect that I have to assume they were trying to recreate that sense of how a Cenobite's created and how recreate the feeling of it that they had in Hellraiser 2 is the only excuse I can give for it. Because for me, that scene worked like gangbusters. I thought it was fantastic that they had him.
The end.
They had like, he gets a happy ending of sorts. He doesn't, you know, like, and that's one of the cool things about the lore is you ask them for a favor. It's not going to be necessarily what you want.
Yeah, it's very monkey's paw.
You might get some of what you want, but you're not, you know, Frank wanted to feel more than he could feel in a human form. So they were like, cool, we're going to make you immortal so that we can tear your fucking body apart and you can feel as much pain as any, like, you're going to be pieces of a body on a floor. We're going to piece your face back together and you're still going to be alive. And you're going to be able to feel it all because you wanted to feel more. It wasn't enough you were so sick of everything on Earth. You needed to feel more. You got it, buddy. And he wanted power. Well, guess what? You're going to get it. But monkey's paw, you're going to get torn apart and stapled to a giant weird cross thing.
Yeah.
So I totally worked for me.
I mean, that ending worked really well for me too. Yeah, I love that.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, just the close-ups of the tearing and everything. I felt like I was feeling everything that was happening to him because they were so close, and the way that they were tearing it, you know, I was just like
flaying him.
I was squirming.
You see, it wasn't the tearing I took issue with. It was like the fact that like in between every second or third shot, they'd like just show white. Like they're just showing light.
No,
he's
the
just seeing...
swirling, like whatever it was, it was some sort of being looking back at him is what I felt it was, like some unknowable entity.
That's what I was.
Like
that's what I was
crafting him. You know, saying like, let's take this and let's move that and let's pull this apart. He was on an operating room table.
Didn't his eyes change too?
Yeah, and his eyes flipped.
The eyes closed and his eyes reopened as the Cenobite.
So it's almost like they're in this new one. They're saying that once you put your eyes on this god, it completely changes what you now see. Like it completely like changes your eyes.
You are a new being.
Yeah. You pass a threshold, and as they say in the new one, thresholds once crossed cannot be uncrossed. At that point, you can only go laterally. You chose liminal. You can go to power, but you can't undo our gift. You know, once you've chosen to go beyond, you can't come back. But that being said, this ending, whatever we think of it, you have to agree, it's better than the apocalyptically bad ending of the first Hellraiser, where she tries to burn the box, and the homeless guy jumps into the fire and turns into some sort of
into a dragon.
What was the
fucking bone dragon thing, and flies away screaming with the box?
Yeah, and
what was the did the homeless guy have a purpose? Does he tie into any of the other movies, or is that just a thing?
Was he in was he in an earlier scene?
Yeah, he was.
Yes, he shows up twice.
He shows up 2 times.
I remember. Yeah,
when she's walking down the street, he creeps on her.
Yeah,
and with her and the boyfriend,
he's creep peeping on her from the alleyway, and then he's munching on crickets.
And then he shows up at the pet shop. Yeah, he shows up at the pet shop.
So did he? That doesn't make any sense.
And then he vanishes.
Yeah, and then he pieces out.
He doesn't.
No, he's just like he's just there. He's just a dude keeping an eye on a chick who's like in proximity to the box.
Right.
And then he just shows up, you know, magically at the end and is like, hey, I'm a giant bone dragon. Let me fly off with this box. What kind of crack was that scene? Where did that come from? The only thing that saves it is then you go back to whatever.
And it loops.
Whatever thing at the beginning where you're in like, you know, the magical shop. What's your pleasure, sir?
Yeah.
Right.
I got the
cycle
like,
begins anew.
Gremlins vibes from that moment, you know, like, oh, I'm now it's back, you know, now to sell it to somebody else.
Forget the racist trope of like some Asian market where you can get gremlins and lament configurations for sale from some dude with bad fingernails and an Asian accent. Like, let's not go into the stereotyping there. But the idea that there is some sort of exotic place in the world where if you travel too much and too far, you can find some of the darker things. So, boys, we're gonna have to land this plane, I'm afraid, with these 2 movies. I know personally I could discuss Hellraiser for days. But is there a Mike Logan Award we want to give across both movies here? Do you want to give one per movie? We have to give the fuck that guy.
I think I want to go one per movie.
You want to do one per movie?
But I know we're going to disagree on the first one because my first one goes to Frank hands down.
Frank hands down. Frank hands down.
Frank sucks.
Frank is the worst person in film history. I don't think there's any question about that. I think we
Then
could,
why are you using his name?
because
Why are you?
that's a whole thing. We can get into that in a second, but the real quick.
I do want to hear this by the end of the episode.
Absolutely. Real quick. Let's be clear. Frank, we could rename the Mike Logan Award the Uncle Frank Award because
yeah, we really are. Yeah,
he is.
I think Mike Logan's worse though. Mike Logan fucking sucks. But
Mike Logan,
continue.
I
Sorry.
think, has more time to show how much he sucks. Frank, we don't
I
see.
agree.
Frank is kind of incapacitated for most of the time. He can't really leave the attic.
it's true.
Right?
It's true.
But you have the implication that Frank would be more than willing to do all the shit that Mike Logan did. He had to go to another dimension to find more fucked up things to do. That's how many fucked up things Frank has had to do. He's like, I'm bored with all the fucked up things I can do on this plane of existence. Let me go find some way to have more fucked up things to do. I think Mike Logan wishes he was Uncle Frank.
yeah.
I would love to see Mike Logan in a Hellraiser movie. But continue. You were saying.
I mean, his problem was he went down to the Amazon. He should have gone to the Orient. He might have found himself in one.
No joke.
All right, so Uncle Frank for Hellraiser. For the remake, who do we have? Trevor?
It's all Trevor.
The boyfriend?
Trevor sucks. The boyfriend.
The traitorous boyfriend who's like, oh yeah, I told her I loved her at the beginning, but she was just a mark and I was going to sacrifice her to the evil gods the whole time.
Lies to everyone.
Yep.
Works for money.
Yep.
Actively manipulates the situation and pretends that he's like, oh, I'm going to get rid of it. It's going to be like, well, this is dangerous.
He's a coward.
Do it.
He's a coward. He tries to get out of it several different ways. When he gets confronted, he's like, no, it's cool. I got it, man. Oh, such a little bitch.
Yeah, he is.
The worst.
Good.
No, Trevor
Good
sucks.
call. I think those are the two great choices. I don't think there's anybody else. Yeah.
Which is funny that we say that because Roland Voigt is, as we said, he's the Uncle Frank of the new movie, but we never really get to, aside from him just being willing to sacrifice people willy-nilly to get his audience with Leviathan, we don't really get the sense beyond that he's that depraved. Like, it's hinted at, but we don't really see it. Frank.
Well, honestly, I was going to say, the thing with Roland, I think, is at least at the beginning, the first victim that we see that he gets comes willingly, right? And then like is doing it all. Like he's manipulating the situation for sure, which is shitty. But like the guy comes to see him. He's looking for Roland. And then he's the one who interacts with the box. And Roland's just like, go ahead. Like, feel free. Like he just allows the situation to happen and then reaps the benefits. Whereas later, all of the stuff that we see Roland do is out of desperation, right? Like, what? You're looking at me like this is...
You're saying it's totally okay that Roland basically gives a child the equivalent of a gun and is like, go ahead, play with it, see what happens.
Well, here's the thing, though. So I'm not saying it's a good thing. It is still a shitty thing. But what I am saying is he doesn't give him the gun. He has the gun laying out. And if we're going with this metaphor, he has a gun. The kid picks up the gun and then he goes like, go ahead, which is a shitty thing.
Yeah.
But also like, and also he's not I wouldn't say he's a fool kid. He's at least a teenager. Like at least this guy can think for himself. A kid that, if we're talking a kid, the kid can't be held responsible for
on
actions.
the cosmic scale. When it comes to an audience with Leviathan, he's a child. He has no idea what he's doing. I mean, he's basically picking up a cannon. It's not even a gun. It's like an intergalactic cannon he's picking up.
But later, all of Roland's actions are out of desperation, right?
But
like
selfish.
He's suffering.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's super selfish. And I'm again, Roland sucks.
Yeah.
But like he's doing it out of like this like animalistic self-preservation of like he's like fuck morals. He's like in pain which I almost feel like isn't as bad as just getting paid and like willingly making these choices.
Sure. And of course the movie, by being about addiction and obsession, is also about selfishness. And everyone in this movie, well, not everyone, some of the people are very selfless to contrast with the people that are selfish. Riley's extremely selfish, and she has to go to the point in the movie where she makes non-selfish choices. That's her journey. But Trevor is extremely selfish. Roland is extremely selfish. And the fact that he's acting selfishly in a way that doesn't immediately impact people as hard as it does Trevor during the time frame of this movie, I don't think excuses him.
I agree. I do agree with that. Again, like I said, I don't think that Roland's not a shitty guy. He is. I just feel like it's almost weirdly, we can justify Roland more from what we see than we can Trevor. And I also want to throw out a little asterisk of, I knew there was something up with Trevor when they show his apartment, and I'm like, what is this fucking penthouse, huge apartment that this guy lives in? That they're like, she's like a drug addict that's getting kicked out of her brother's house, and he's got this like palatial brick-walled palace of shit with like arcade games. I'm like, what does this guy do? He's like, oh, I work in shipping.
I'm jumping back and I'm trying to think like, okay, so we have Roland who's desperate, who's constantly in pain. So he's reaching out to Trevor like, I need help with this. I need to get to this next level so I can get out of this. So that's why he's hiring him. But then it's like, but it is Trevor that probably then went to, okay, I'm going to go to an AA meeting because that's where the most the most
vulnerable
desperate people that I can easily manipulate to do this for me will go. And that's, and like, you know, they set up right there. It's like, why are you dating this guy that you met in AA? You know, it's like looking back like, oh, that guy sucks because that was the point. That's what he wanted. He wanted to find somebody that he could manipulate so that he could just guide her to do this and, you know, and get, so he could get paid. And he doesn't know what's going to happen to her, but like it completely, like she loses her brother. She loses pretty much everybody around her, you know, because of her addiction, but also trusting in Trevor. So I think that they both earn it, but I'll still stick with Trevor too, because of the actions that he took throughout.
One of the first things out of his mouth is she's a mark. And that's like, oh God.
Oh yeah, when he gets confronted. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the first things he says.
Which is a horrible thing to hear. And it's funny because from the very beginning, you know, we kind of are like, okay, Trevor's kind of a cool dude. He's, and the brothers got the wrong idea about him. Maybe he seems like he's a genuine dude. When you watch the movie, knowing that he's going to trick her, he has the actor whose name is Drew Starkey. He has some great little reactions. He shows you that he is leading this girl along and none of us see it. Unless you're looking for it, it's hard to see, but they are there. So, but I'd have to agree, just based on what we see in the movie, Trevor gets the F That Guy award for the new Hellraiser. But now, before we give our Scully awards, I do have to explain the Uncle Frank thing.
Yeah,
because
please.
In no way do I condone Uncle Frank's actions or who he is as a person. He's an absolute piece of shit. But his journey in this movie is something that's always really captivated me. The fact that, like, take away his personality and who he is and, you know, how fucking evil and fucked up he is. And
take away everything about him.
Take away everything about him and have it just be about a human pulling themselves back out of hell. And just the aesthetics of that. From him being just a puddle in the floor. And the way that they animate that scene, the way that the special effects work in that scene, in his resurrection scene, where he comes back screaming, his bones come shooting out of the floor. It's painful. It's like a birth. He rebirths himself. The willpower that it takes for this guy to have, first of all, pushed himself to that limit, and then to have brought himself back from it, to have willed himself back to existence. And then the painful journey that he undergoes to get himself back to some semblance of humanity. And not only that, but then the image of a man with no skin has always really captivated me. Just that imagery of Frank in the suit, the nice suit, but he's got no skin and he's in excruciating pain all the time. That is captivating to me. That's the part that I really connect with and that I've always really kind of had some sort of poetic idealism about. For me, it's not the character of Uncle Frank that I resonate with at all, but there is something about his perseverance, about his will, about what it means to be this man with no skin that has crawled back from hell and is living every single day in this state that he's in. And it may be a bit dramatic. It may be a bit maudlin. I don't want to get too serious, but I think this is something that more people need to get comfortable with talking about. And that is, for me, from an iconographic standpoint, from an aesthetic standpoint, Uncle Frank to me is kind of like an avatar for depression, for my depression. He is something that inspires me to get up and keep moving every day, to get up and go out into the world every day and to keep doing things. Even if I'm metaphorically the man with no skin in the suit, trying to keep going, right? So that to me is more what attracts me to the imagery of that character, and that it's dissociated in a lot of ways from the actual character because, well, Jesus Christ, the actual character is a monster. But there is something about horror movies where we do find connection with monsters, where we do find something about a monster that we see reflected in ourselves. And we don't always have to take the monster whole cloth. We don't have to take the monster entirely as they're presented, but we can take an aspect of that mirror and see ourselves in it. And that's kind of what I have with Frank. There are certain aspects of the monster that I connect with. His pain, his will, his perseverance, and those are ideals that I try to emulate. There's maybe a bit of oversharing, but I think that it's worthwhile. And hopefully you guys have a better idea of why the hell I call myself Uncle Frank and I dress up like Uncle Frank for Halloween. And it has nothing to do with his conduct in general. What a piece of shit he is. But gentlemen, it is time to rate Double Scullies. Double Scully Awards this time. We got to give
our first ever.
Yeah, our first ever Double Scullies to the Hellraiser movies. These were my picks, so I'm afraid I do have to go first. I will do Hellraiser 2022 first. I definitely think it's an imperfect movie. It is not an all-time, it's not a great Hellraiser movie, but it is a very strong Hellraiser movie. And I can tell you guys right now, y'all haven't seen any of the 9 other Hellraiser movies that exist. This is the best Hellraiser movie besides number 1. Full stop. And for a Hellraiser fan who has been suffering for 30 fucking years, 35 years before this movie came out, thank God we finally had a halfway decent Hellraiser movie that was actually look at and say, okay, that was pretty cool. I've got to give it.
And who knew it would come from Hulu?
It makes me insane. I can't get this movie on physical media. Fucking Hulu.
I know. Jeez.
God damn it.
And this director is incredible too. I mean, this is
David Bruckner. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's great.
Absolutely. The Ritual is one day we'll do The Ritual on this show. We will.
We definitely will.
That movie is phenomenal. But this movie gets an 8.5 from me. I liked it a lot. It's got its flaws. It's certainly not a perfect movie, but I loved it as a Hellraiser movie. As a like, I want more, but I worry that the fan base is just, I didn't have enough weird sex stuff in it for me, or whatever their other complaints are. And of course, I think it's no surprise that I give the original Hellraiser a 10 Scullies.
Of course you do.
Of course I do.
Nice.
I have to. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't. That's absolutely a personal raising of the Scullies from what I think it is from a technical standpoint. It's a 10. So Dan, let's have you go next here. What do you think?
Man,
what do you think? How do you rate?
This is so weird. This is so weird to me because I going into it, I would have definitely, upped Hellraiser 2022 over the original. But after again having our conversations, I'm always like, oh, I didn't think of that, or oh, I didn't think of I'm always dropped down a peg about the ones that I love, and I'm always brought up by the ones that I'm like iffy on. So I'm gonna go tied 7-7 for both of them because because I think, gosh, I want to go 8 on the original Hellraiser simply because I know how important it is to the horror community, its influence on future horror. We don't get Event Horizon without Hellraiser, in my opinion. The stuff that Hellraiser does in Event Horizon, you get, I mean, even in newer movies like Mandy, we got, rip-off Cenobites in that movie. So it's like, I know the impact it has, but I just couldn't connect with it enough to give it like the higher ups 8, 9, or 10, because I don't, as weird as this is to say, like, I don't think I would be like, oh, let's put on Hellraiser tonight. I don't connect with it that way. I'd rather put on a Halloween or a Freddy or something over this movie. And maybe it is the sexual stuff that like turns me off of it or makes me feel icky, so I don't want to, touch upon it. So that's why I give the original that 7. And then I would have gone higher, like maybe even like be comfortable with the 8 of the other one. But you guys make really good points that I think the stuff that makes Hellraiser so iconic, they lost. But I do love still what he did with the idea of addiction and applying it to this world and everything. So I'll probably regret doing this, but I think I'm just going to go 7 both ways just because, like, that's kind of where I'm at.
You're cold as ice. Oh, it hurts.
It
hurts, but I respect your
in a few
opinion.
episodes, I may jump up Hellraiser because I'll probably think about what you were talking about, and I'll be like, you know what, Ian's right, and I'm wrong, and let's bump it up.
One thing I will say, if and when you do watch Hellraiser again, Clive Barker had never directed a movie before. He didn't know a thing about filmmaking. His crew led him along the entire time. He was a playwright. He did theater. These were all people he met at the theater for the most part, with I think the exception of Andrew Robinson, who played Larry, the goofy dad, who you might know, by the way, as Garrick on Deep Space Nine. He was the Cardassian Taylor guy. And if you remember Dirty Harry, he was the Scorpio killer.
Oh,
so he got
nice.
typecast as playing psychos for a long time. So him playing kind of like the goofy dad, who then turns into a psycho, is actually a great role for him. But he was kind of the big star. This movie was done on no budget, $900,000.
Well, but that's what I want to say. Not.
But the makeup's really good for that budget.
No, not that the makeup was impressive, but
it's insane.
I was very surprised because you think of Hellraiser, I think I'm thinking of all the sequels, and you're like, oh, it's this big world, it's about Earth, it's about hell and coming together, and then you're like, this is kind of a haunted house movie. It's like they're in this movie 90% of the time, and then there's a hospital room and like a couple shots outside, but everything is taking place in here. And I was like, oh, they had no budget for this movie, and the budget went to the incredible, effects that went into it. So like, I was like, because I'm like, there's times where they're shooting on the stairway, and I'm like, man, the camera was probably right next to these people. They had nowhere to go. Like they're just like in a hallway, in another hallway, in another hallway. And I'm like, man, they had nowhere to shoot.
And they were all theater actors, and you get the feeling of kind of like a chamber drama. It's a melodrama. Like it really does have that very, very heightened feel to it. The shots are very dramatic, and the way people look at each other can be very dramatic and a little over the top. And that's part of the charm for me, is that feeling of being low budget and being a bit amateurish. Like that's part of its charm for me, and that probably might be a bit of nostalgia as well.
Before we move to Ryan, hold on, Ryan. Before we move to Ryan, just because I want to point on it, because as much as I say I didn't really connect, there was one scene that hit me so hard.
Let's go.
It was devastating when she's talking to her dad, but it's Frank, and she knows that her dad is dead. She knows it in her heart that her dad's dead, and this is not him. But that was so heartbreaking to be like, oh my God, like I'm thinking like my kids, like, oh my God, like you want to see your dad again. And it's like, that's not my dad though. Like, where is my dad? And then you have to see this like burnt, disgusting version of your dad. She's just down at this like disgusting thing going, daddy, daddy. I was like, fuck, dude, that was so
that whole
sad.
sequence, the way that they do that, where they have Larry die off screen and Frank skins him and puts his skin on, and he comes back out as Larry Frank, whatever we want to call him. It's kind of like a bit of like an ice in your stomach moment where you're like, oh God, Larry's dead. Like he's a goober, but he didn't deserve that. He's a genuinely caring, sweet guy. He's just so he didn't deserve that. And to go from that, and then she comes in and you're immediately just like, oh, fuck, Kirsty, you are in danger. Get out of the room. That's not your dad. That's Frank.
Yeah.
Come to daddy.
Ugh, so gross.
Ugh.
Mr.
RyanRossLIVE. Sorry, Ryan.
Let's hear your Scullies. What do you got for the two Hellraisers?
Interestingly enough, I agree with each of you on one movie.
Ooh.
So I have to give the original Hellraiser a 7. And the thing is, we didn't really touch on this, but I think one of the things that, at least at the beginning, I think it settles in later, the first opening scenes of this movie, the dialogue is so bad. It doesn't feel natural. They're like it feels so stiff scripted, the way that they like talk to each other and stuff. It was really hard to get through that first like 10 minutes or whatever. And like, I wanted more Hellraiser. I wanted more Cenobites. I wanted more Box. I didn't need Frank so much, like, and I get to your point. I do see the metaphor of the angle of like the story and the angle that it was being told from, but at least, and I also will say that I am coming in years after, where the only things I know about the franchise are the Box and the Cenobites. And so I was very excited for them, and they're not really in this movie a whole lot. So that was a disappointment. It's not bad. Like, it's got elements that are charming. There's some really cool moments. I'll give it a 7. And then On the flip side, I have to give the new one an 8.5.
Wow.
I think that the new one, there's a lot of things I really like about the new one. Even just watching them back to back, the beginning of the new one, I was like, oh man, this one had 40 years to benefit from filmmaking and script writing. Like, the characters feel so much more natural. The conversations feel so much more natural. I'm like, oh my God, these feel like people. Oh, this is such a relief. And then we get into the story, and there, like I said, I think the ending starts to jump the shark a little bit for me at moments. I think that there are elements of the switchblade thing kind of just sucks. But I also, on the flip side, the moment when she stabs the Cenobite and the Cenobite like sacrifices itself, like, oh, I've been chosen, like I have to follow the rules. That was a cool twist. I love that moment. And then it gets torn apart in front of them. I thought for sure she was going to sacrifice Trevor there. I thought for sure.
We were hoping.
I was just like, I mean, to be fair, at that point, we haven't gotten the full reveal yet, right?
We didn't know. We thought he was the good dude trying to help her out.
It was still like douchey boyfriend.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, and the thing is, like, especially like he's like, we have to go back to the house. Like Sasha and I were like, why the fuck would you want to go back?
Why do you have to go back to the house?
Like,
makes sense now though, doesn't it?
Exactly. Like, there's a bunch of stuff like that were like, I don't remember what it was that triggered it, but somewhere in the middle of the movie, I was like, he knows. I don't know why he knows, but he knows what the box does. And like, there's like, you can tell he knows. But anyway, so overall, I have to give it an 8.5. I think that it was, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of cool stuff about it that I really liked. I thought the house in and of itself was so well done. Yeah, I wish there was more Hellraiser like that.
Well, I can say, actually, I'm now curious to see what you guys think of Hellraiser 2, because I think that would actually possibly fix a lot of your guys' complaints about both of these movies. I'd be very curious to see what you thought about that one. I feel it's an inferior movie to both, but it has aspects in it that I think address both of your issues with Hellraiser 1. And it's funny because I feel like Hellraiser works just fine when the Cenobites are secondary. Mm-hmm. They are window dressing. I don't need them to be the center of the whole thing. I prefer that they not be. I prefer that the human story be the center, and it might be nostalgia. It might be me being raised with the original Hellraiser, but for me, it is about human failings first, and it's not about the great cosmic horror beyond that. That's just something that comes along with it. But again, I can recognize that the first movie has not necessarily aged terribly well. It definitely looks its age, looks its budget. Although I worry now that any like real big like horror fans are going to listen to the show and realize that 2 of the 3 hosts gave the original Hellraiser a 7, and they're going to be so mad.
Hey, overall, we gave it an 8.
But that's the joy.
Still not bad.
That's the joy of this show, is differing opinions and getting new perspectives on horror movies that have been around for quite a long time.
Actually, interestingly enough, our averages tie the movies. They're both considered 8s when you average our scores together. That's hilarious.
I think that's a travesty, but at the same time, I understand. But speaking of travesties, I am currently out of a prompt. I have used up my prompt on the double feature of Hellraiser 1987 and 2022.
Don't we have to choose why somebody died?
Oh, we do have to choose why somebody died.
We didn't do our show. That's our whole show. Good God. I just went flying right past it.
You're already going to the skull.
Thank you, Dan. Guys, it's
Thank God, show. Dan. Thank God Dan's paying attention. All right. Boys, it's time to come to that time of the show. We got to figure out why someone died. We got 2 movies to choose from.
Which we should do one from each.
I think we should just pick. We're going to do one from each? Okay.
Let's do one from each.
It's a double feature. It's double feature for a reason. I mean, it's only... we've got all the time in the world, don't we? So, all right, let's start with Hellraiser 1987. Why did someone die in Hellraiser 1987? Dan, who do you got in this one?
I'm just going to go way out there so I don't take anybody else's, but like, glasses dude at the end, like, don't go into a weird, creepy house with some woman you just met just because you want to have some sex. Like, there's probably a better, safer way to go.
I think we can say that to all the victims, man.
I can wrap it into all the victims, but I'm saying her victim, like, and I'm just choosing one of them. But like, as soon as I saw that house, I would be like, hold on, like, there's a hotel. Like, go over there. Mm-hmm. Like, let's just go there. Like, why are we going to this creepy house?
To be fair, I mean, part of it is that all those guys seemed like they had some sort of sexual deviancy going on, where she's like, hey, let's have sex on the floor of this weird, musty attic. And the one dude's like, first time for everything.
Yeah, true.
I'm down. Hey,
Lonely men.
let's go. Check out my tidy whities from the low back. What a camera angle. Thanks, Clive.
Well, I'm just
Didn't
saying
need that one.
they chose to follow her rather than just get like a neutral hotel, keep it safe with random woman. So they died because they followed her.
Gave into their nasty
Penis.
carnal desires, and next thing you know, they're getting hammered, but not in the way that they had intended.
All right.
Yuck.
I'm just going to go straight forward. Frank, because he's a fucking sleazeball. He can't get enough. He has photos of like a half a dozen to a dozen women, and he's just got to keep going further. He's walking around threatening people with a switchblade, and here he is in a creepy attic doing a summoning for creatures from beyond the veil that will elevate his experience.
Honestly, I don't think that's why Frank died. I think Frank died because Frank got cocky. Frank had it. He had it in the bag. He had a new skin. The Cenobites didn't believe that he was gone.
I was thinking dying the first time, I guess. If we're going towards the end. I
was going to say,
to be fair, he does die twice, so we could do
he
it.
dies twice. Yeah. Which time? Well, hey, you know what, Ryan? Technically, you got one and I got one.
I was going to say, we just got
You-
different
There you
Franks.
go.
Why did Frank die the first time? Because he couldn't get it up anymore. He had to find another way to get his yucks, and he had to go to a dark dimension of pain and suffering to do so. Why did he die the second time? Because he just got cocky. He got carried away and had to go do the classic villain blunder of saying his name in the middle of the room where he was pulled to hell, and the Cenobites were like, what?
Yeah.
What?
We needed to hear it from your own lips.
Frank! And that look in his eyes, oh, crap. Okay, real quick, what did you guys think of Jesus Wept? What does Jesus Wept mean? Did you take that as him being kind of making fun of the situation? Or was that some sort of blasphemous thing? What do you think Jesus Wept was about?
I took it very nihilistically of just like, well, like almost like looking at the camera and going like, that's the ropes, kid. Like that's, like, that's how I took it. Was very like,
I loved it.
And Jesus wept.
Yep.
I don't know how I took it. How did you take it, Ian? Because I don't even know if I really like applied it to anything.
I think it's got about 10 different ways you can take it at the same time. I don't think there's any one right answer. I personally think that it can be. It's blasphemous. It's humorous. I think he's taking the piss out of himself. I think he's taking the piss out of the situation. And I think that he's also looking at all of this and, kind of shrugging and be like, well, they got me.
Yeah.
You got me, kid. Well played. I'll be back.
That's the rope.
Nice.
Pop.
That's all, folks.
What about Hellraiser 2022? This is why you died. Ryan?
But I had one for this, and now we got into Frank. Let's see. I'll go poor Nora, man. Nora was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nora was like, oh, there's this wall that opens up. And then it closed behind her, and she's like, oh, shit, I'm in trouble. And then there's Roland Voight, ready and willing.
I'll tell you this. She did the classic horror movie blunder. Never go into a secret fucking door in a creepy house.
Alone,
That's like-
especially, right?
Dude, first of all, you're flipping all the you're in a creepy, weird house.
Mhm.
You're flipping all the switches. This is just horror movie 101.
Yeah, true. Good point.
I will say, I relate to the whole, like, hey, there's all these switches and we're in a house alone. Let's see what they do. I get that. But like when you're separated, going into the first thing I do is be like,
Ryan.
hey guys, there's a passageway over here. Like,
She kind of did. She was like, oh, sorry guys, I'm flipping switches. Don't mind me. But yeah, Ryan, this is why you would die in a horror movie, because you'd start flipping switches.
I mean, I wouldn't go
Don't
in
flip
the
switches.
I'd just get somebody else to go in the tunnel with me. I'd wait.
But there was,
And then-
you didn't know when someone was coming
Then
back.
one of us would die. It might be me still, but at least there'd be two of us.
Yeah,
Somebody would see Roland.
you would be the Nora, Ryan.
Oh.
You would go in the wall, and weird Goran Biznich would stab you with his little box thing.
And then I'd be bent over backwards on hooks and
oh,
That was good. That part was great.
with a needle through
That's
your
one
neck.
of the best scenes in the movie.
God.
It's one of the best
And
scenes in the movie.
inside the throat.
Oh, it's so good.
That was incredible.
Yes.
Although there's no
Man.
blood.
No,
Hey, they don't do any blood.
no, yes, they do when they finally pull her apart.
Well, yeah, but the needle doesn't give any blood, which I was like, why is there no blood with the needle? That's very strange.
That's because it's a little tiny needle. It's because
That's not how blood works.
that's how
That's
precise.
not how blood works.
That's how precise Pinhead
That's
is.
not how blood works.
That's how good they are. No blood until they mean to have
You
it.
saw Audition? He's just sticking it in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Blah.
Just trying to get that nice sound.
I'm hearing
that
piano
nice, beautiful
wire.
sound. Dan, what about you? Why did someone die?
So I'm gonna give a reason. This is similar to Drew Barrymore and Scream. Not that they made a stupid, dumb horror movie choice, but this is why I think they died. Is that her poor brother didn't stick to his guns and let her just leave. He had to like get up and go look for her. He really loved his sister, and that's good, but that's why he died. Like he went out for her, even though he's like, just get out of my house. He still couldn't let her leave. So because he like could not stick to his guns for that one time to just like give her a lesson, and when found her, he got cut and he got sucked in the bathroom. I don't know where
I think
he
this is
went.
the first time on the show we've like, this person died because they loved too much.
Yeah, well, but that's true.
He's
Like
too good a guy.
It's kind of a sad one. It's
It
kind of a
was.
sad one where like he didn't make any real like horror movie mistake. He just kind of made a bad life choice.
Yeah.
You could say the argument in the first place, the fact that he kicked her out, ultimately leads to his death too. Of like,
True.
you could even just go one back step further and be like, had he not kicked her out in the middle of a fight where they were both heightened emotions, he would have been fine.
But how long are you going to let an addict
True.
walk all over you and lie to you to your face and be a piece of shit like Riley was being?
Yeah.
Can't say I blame him.
True. I will say the boyfriend has the best line of like, hey, let's not make decisions in the middle of the night. We can do this tomorrow. But the reasonable ones.
Adam, the boyfriend, he's kind of the hero of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
The-
yeah.
He
He
is
really
the one pure character in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm just glad he lived.
Right? Like he's just a good dude.
He got sliced down the back like a
He
fillet
got
of fish,
yeah.
and he's still
He got
alive.
fucked up.
I know.
He got fucked up in this movie.
But he was the
Whoa.
logical one. Like he was the audience of like, why are you apart? We should be together trying to find your brother.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck are you doing this? Like, why are
This
you?
makes no sense. This book is not a thing. Like,
We're going to leave now.
Yeah.
No, I gotta see us through to the end. Well, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go for maybe a bit of an unconventional one here, and I'm gonna throw one out. I'm gonna pour out a little bit here for my boy, the Chatterer Cenobite.
yep.
Bro, you gonna let a little 5'0" addict stab you with the liminals configuration? What's wrong with you, boy?
Through a gate.
I thought you were a Cenobite.
He's just standing
I
there.
thought you were a badass.
chattering.
Yeah. You're pushing gates off their hinges and you're chasing after dudes. You're a badass Cenobite. You're gonna get punked by a little nothing chick with a box? Bro, this is why you died.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is why he was like, just kill me. Just,
Right.
you know what? Fuck it. Just kill
I
me.
deserve this.
I deserve to die now. I got punked by this little idiot. Kill me.
Good choice.
All right, boys. Well, with that,
Back on track.
back on track. I am now out of a prompt. So that means I've got to reach into my bucket of doom, which for me is a nice little shiny skull
So
here.
good.
And I have to
That's
reach
the
in
best
here,
one.
toss
Well, he
all of these.
draws. Dan,
You
you have
dropped some.
suspense, right? You did drop one.
Better pick that
Oh,
up.
well, let's go for
Could
that
be
one.
good.
I'll go for that one. Let's find out if it's good or not.
Oh no.
Well,
Oh no.
What
may be
is
good.
it?
It may be bad for you guys. It is behind.
Oh,
Oh,
my god.
no.
Oh my god.
Behind.
Okay.
Oh, I got a good movie for that already.
How am I going to interpret that? I guess we'll see. How juvenile am I feeling today?
Oh, I feel very juvenile with my joke that my movie choice in my head.
So we've got behind.
Mhm.
We've got you, Dan. You have suspense, right?
suspense. Is it suspense?
Yeah, Dan has suspense.
Suspense, yes.
We have to find out what your choices are for that. And then Ryan, you have the next episode coming up.
I have a double feature for camera.
And you have we're all
For
you have
camera.
it. Call it out. Call down the
Let's
sound
do it.
effect. Give us the hex.
All right. To continue the hex, we will be watching a double feature for camera. And so, again, in classic me fashion, I don't know that many horror movies, and I didn't want to go too stereotypical, so I didn't want to do like Blair Witch Project or whatever. I was trying to avoid found footage for the most part. So I was trying to find something that was like camera-centric horror movies. And after some research and a brief couple synopsis first sentence or two so as to not get too deep. I found two that I think might work. And so the two that I've picked that are unrelated other than through their connections to cameras, we will be watching Willow Creek, and we will be watching a movie called Rec, R-E-C.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
As in recording.
Yes. Spanish from
Yes.
2007.
Is it Spanish?
Yes.
Yes.
I did not
It
know
is
it was
Spanish.
Spanish.
Be ready to
Spanish.
read those
Yep.
subtitles, sir.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Don't watch a dub
Well,
version.
for not wanting to watch found footage movies, you picked two found footage movies.
Oh, they both found footage.
Yeah.
They're both found footage.
I
Yeah.
did not know. I
Well,
was trying to avoid found footage. I know for the most part, but I mean, when I search, I guess it makes sense if I search camera horror movies that they both end up being found footage.
so I haven't seen Willow Creek.
Neither have
Dan,
I.
sounds like both of
I have
us.
not.
Okay, so you haven't seen
I've
Willow
seen
All
Creek.
of us
All right, so
haven't
none of us have seen
one.
Willow
Let's
Creek.
go.
No.
Great. So
That's exciting.
That will be great. That will be a good one to watch. And I think any found footage movie, watching it next to Rec, will be a great way to juxtapose found footage movies. So I'm looking forward to that. And ladies and gentlemen, you can look forward to that as well. We'll be doing that episode, and we will have it up to you in 2 weeks from the time this one goes live. But boys, any last words on the show today? Any last words on Hellraiser or on double features or anything you want to shout out before we get out of here?
I want to thank Ian for making the choice because I finally pushed me to sit through Hellraiser and get through the boring part that I couldn't get through and love the last 30 minutes of it. So I thank you. I know I'm not giving it the level that you want it to be, I'm sure, but I thank you for at least making the choice so that I could understand that it is important and it's a good one.
He opened the box.
Open the box.
And we came.
I opened the box and you came. Wait a second.
Hold on.
But I am actually, I'm going to admit, I'm a bit disappointed. You guys didn't like the movie better, but I can't say that I'm entirely surprised. And with my beautiful, by the way, this laminate configuration that I have, it actually does move and it does open.
You gotta stop doing that. That's a bad idea.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. You getting a little scared?
This is why you died, dude.
What? Because I'm
fiddling with the
fucking
box.
with my laminate configuration. Wiki. Okay. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make our way towards the exit aisle. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time right here on
This is why you die.